episode, may not be scratching my ear, episode number 3 of the Mavs Pulse podcast. You guys showed a lot of love on episodes 1 and 2. We appreciate you guys. Shout out to all the people that are helping us kind of work behind the scenes. Shout out to Grant, being at every single game, every single practice, making sure that you guys stay up to date on everything that's happening Dallas Mavericks related. We're going to recap what happened over the weekend, who got cut, who did not make the team, who got that final two-way deal, and then some injury reports, as well as previewing the season opener for the Dallas Mavericks Spurs versus the Mavs on Wednesday at the AAC. I know myself, I'm excited for that one. Two top picks going against each other. We've seen it last year, the 7'3" and above club. And if you're Wemby, 7'7". So we'll go through all that. Mavs Pulse podcast every Monday, every Thursday, keeping you guys locked and loaded so that you sound a little bit smarter on the weekends and on the weekday when you're talking to your coworkers and your friends about basketball. So without enough of me yapping, Grant, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Really glad that we're getting close to the meaningful basketball games that count in the standings. So very close to getting it going.
I know the offseason stuff is fun and all, and to come up with predictions and what's the lineup going to look like. And it's fun because there's no really bad things that come out of it yet. But we're going to start getting into it. The Mavs go on a 5-game losing streak. Why is Jason Kidd doing this? Why is this player playing? Why are they running this coverage? So it'll be fun. This is probably the last episode that it'll be all happy-go-lucky because after that, it's real results. We're going to be real and raw with the team and be cutthroat if needed, and obviously give flowers where it's needed as well because we know you guys have busy lives. You're not able to see every single moment, game, practice, and update. Don't worry, we got you. So without further ado, Grant, kind of what were the takeaways from this weekend's transactions? We saw some players get cut, fan favorite getting cut, and kind of also the final two-way deal being signed.
Yeah, so they had two-way contracts going into the weekend, Ryan Nembhard and Miles Kelly, and they converted Musa Cisse, the 6'10" center that they had gotten in the International G League draft, who will be spending time with the Texas Legends. He was converted to a final two-way contract out of the 3 max slots they're allowed to have. They also picked up Derek Lively's team option for the 2026-27 season. And, that was kind of common sense, expected. Anytime a draft pick lives up to expectations, they're going to get all their options picked up. He is going to make over $7.2 million fully guaranteed during, that time period when he's on the final year of his contract. And in terms of roster cuts, the team cut Dennis Smith Jr., someone who spent time in camp, Jeremiah Robinson Earl as well. 2 vets that were spoken very highly of, throughout the process, including, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, especially. I'd asked Jason Kidd in Utah pregame, about, what he's brought to this team to make this a competitive training camp. And he mentioned that it's really sad that he's not on an NBA team. So good talent that's going to the Texas Legends, at least in the form of Jeremiah Robinson Earl. The Mavericks have not acquired Dennis Smith Jr.'s G League rights as of us recording this. Milwaukee still owns those, so they would have to work out a trade for him to be part of the Legends. But other players that they, sign and cut quickly in transactions to, help the Legends roster, Matt Cross, Jamarian Sharp, Zaire Smith. A couple of those guys were already on the Legends last year, so nothing new about that. But now the roster has 18 players, which includes the 3 two-way guys, so they're down to that standard 15 contracts as well, which puts them at their opening night roster.
Did anything surprise you with the guys that didn't make the team and the guys that got that final two-way contract? I know there wasn't a lot of talk about that because I think a lot of people have been looking at Ryan Nembhard. Anything surprise you over the weekend transactions?
Honestly, nothing was surprising. It was pretty, business as usual in terms of, what we were expecting. They went into camp with 15 standard contracts. It would have required them to be so just amazed by somebody that they would have had to attach an asset to get rid of somebody to open up a spot. And, that didn't ultimately happen, especially with Dennis Smith Jr. because he got hurt the first day of camp, essentially, and was unable to really
that was
do
tough
a whole
for
lot.
him. That was tough for him because his whole thing was obviously he was on a training camp deal. I spoke about it a bunch on the fan. It was like, I don't know if he's going to make the roster, and there's a low possibility of it, but there is a chance, and his perimeter defense. And when he was hurt and wasn't able to practice and wasn't able to play in the preseason games, it's like, it just sucks for him. He's such a great guy covering him. And then also when he came back from Mavs Media Day, it was super cool sitting down with him and talking. He's just a down-to-earth guy, R&B fan. So we'll be sending him love wherever he ends up going. I know a lot of people are fans of Dennis Smith Jr. Do you when you look at this Mavs roster, just kind of in totality, do you see a lot of holes, like as far as the type of players they have? Like you have a Kyrie, you have a D'Angelo Russell, playmaking point guards, one a little bit more efficient than the other, obviously, but Kyrie being hurt. Do you have that perimeter defender guy you think on the roster? Would you have liked for them to keep Dennis Smith for that reason? Like, do you think everything on the roster is justified? Get rid of Dennis, get rid of all the rest of these guys. We got what we need, and you're happy about that, Grant.
Yeah, I think for the most part, what we're starting to see with teams just around the league overall is just like you really want to have a two-way guy that you feel can step in and contribute to kind of get around the salary cap instead of having to give like veteran minimum guaranteed contracts to every single person that's touching the floor. So I think with Ryan Nembhard playing really well in camp and having 20 assists to 2 turnovers, he's earned a lot of trust, and I think that really kind of balances out the guard rotation early on. I do think it's still a little complicated. Like we still don't know in terms of opening night who's going to start in the backcourt. Could be Cooper Flag and PJ Washington, like we saw in the last couple of games with Klay Thompson, on the wing as well. Could also be, for all we know, D'Angelo Russell sliding back into that role, which it just seems when you end preseason, it's more likely than not to be, the way you ended it when you're running everyone's minutes up, like with Cooper Flag and PJ Washington and Klay as that trio on the perimeter. We'll have to wait and see. Kid did mention that it hasn't been solidified. And, he also mentioned that he wouldn't tell us jokingly, even if it was. So we'll just have to wait and see. For
Classic
sure. We'll have to wait and see on the starting lineup. But
I'm not a doctor kid.
No, for sure. And then, just overall, I think there's a lot of depth at a lot of positions. So I think just, back to what we've been talking about in these couple of episodes, I think it's just going to be hard to really figure out playing time and keeping a lot of players happy, which is good and bad problems to have, but just a lot of wing veterans that are probably not going to want to have reduced minutes and naturally, but also guards where they're trying to earn a spot. Like Ryan Nembhard surely would love a standard contract at some point. And D'Angelo Russell surely would ideally not come off the bench signing a prove-it deal with the Mavericks, expecting to have a big role before Kyrie Irving comes back from injury. Just, little things like that where, it's going to have to, require some management from the coaching staff to, really keep as many people as possible happy going into the season. And then it gets even more complicated when Kyrie Irving comes back. But yet again, good and bad problems to have sometimes.
Jason Kidd, the ego massager, we're gonna have to see him at an elite level this year because you got to. That's the problem. That's the one con, if you will, of having a really deep team is a lot of guys have a reason to play. You're not 7 or 8 deep. You're 10, 11 deep, where guys could very much be getting a lot of minutes for the Dallas Mavericks. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. That's why I think me and Grant are excited to see how the season kicks off. There's a lot of questions. Some have been answered, some have not. How's the rotation going to look? Are they going to go more big, more small, more young, more old, a mix? There's a lot of questions to be figured out, but that's why you listen to the Mavs Pulse, and we'll get you guys caught up when something does happen. Okay, let's preview the Spurs versus the Dallas Mavericks. If you want to sponsor this video, right here, this is where we'd be talking about. You'd be saying how great you are. Boom. People would buy your product. It's a win-win. So hit us up. But let's preview the Spurs and Mavericks Wednesday night, 8:30 AAC. It's going to be a fun one. Opening night for the Dallas Mavericks. Like I said, Derek Lively, 7'3". Wemby, 7'5", 7'7", 7'6". Maybe he's still growing as we're talking. He's probably 7'8" by the time we finish this podcast. I'm just excited to see that matchup because we saw it last year. And we saw Lively take care of business. It feels like he's had his number and being a lanky guy. But I've been seeing videos of Wemby bringing the ball up the court, dunking on people without leaving his feet, putting back free throws without getting off his feet, dribble moves, dunking with a lot more aggressiveness. He went and did his little cross-country trip, and he's seems like he's unstoppable right now. What kind of team are the Dallas Mavericks getting themselves into on Wednesday night versus Spurs? For people who haven't been keeping up with them the last couple of years or even over the offseason, is this a fast-paced team for everybody wondering? I mean, the Spurs to me have always been a young athletic team that like to get up and move, and now they're going to be even more centered around Wemby. You got a bunch of young guys, you got a bunch of guards. What kind of team are the Mavs getting themselves into on Wednesday?
Yeah, right now with De'Aaron Fox being sidelined with a hamstring injury, and then also Jeremy Sohan being out, right now they got a different look around Victor Wembanyama. They have Stephen Castle starting, and then a lot of wing depth as well, just around those players, even with Sohan out. So they're going to play that spread offense style. They're going to try to play fast, as you had mentioned, and defensively, it all starts with Victor. His interior presence is something that Mavs fans are very well aware of from previous matchups. Like even with Luka Doncic, it felt like there were times when in the half court there was a lid on the front rim. I think Luka had his most missed shots in a game of his NBA career against Victor. During a previous matchup. And then, of course, while the tank button was being hit, the Spurs went small while they had control of the game. And then you conveniently lost control of the game during during that game. But now that they're going into a season with Victor, the goal is to win, and you can tell by some of the roster moves that they made. They added more center depth. Luke Cornett was their marquee addition from the Boston Celtics. He's someone that can play with Wemby, but it looks like based off their preseason, lineup combinations early on, they're more so having him come off the bench, provide depth, that depth that they didn't have during this rebuild while they were, focused on that draft positioning. So this is going to be a different, type of Spurs team where, it seems like for the first time in, Wembanyama's tenure, they're really focused on, truly trying to win now and competing to move up in the standings and probably get in that playoff picture, at least play-in picture, regardless of which one it may be.
I'm trying to think just based on kind of how the Spurs roster is set up and kind of the guys that we think will be in the rotation who I could see maybe not having their best game of opening night. I think Cooper will be fine. I think PJ will be fine. I could see a D'Angelo Russell struggling a little bit in this game. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I think Lively's going to continue to do what he did. Lively's going to have to be big for you because, like you just said, that two big lineup, Anthony Davis and Lively are probably going to get what they want of being on the floor at the same time, or maybe one of them wants to wait and see. But at least Jason Kidd, we'll have to wait and see. I think you're going to see that. Gafford, as we know, we got the updates that he might be able to go on Wednesday. He's ramping up. He's doing some non-contact stuff. Has he done any contact stuff that you've seen yet?
No,
Gafford?
they just mentioned that he's been a limited participant. That was for 2 practices in a row at least. But I did see him out in Vegas. He was doing a lot of cardio stuff pre-game, and then today's practice on Monday when we're recording this, he was doing like big man drills, like working on post ups with Derek Lively, and then pick and roll. But it wasn't any contact stuff in terms of like them, being directly involved. They're just going through station work. So definitely going to be something to keep an eye on at Tuesday's practice for Gafford. Jason Kidd did mention that they're going to, see how he feels tomorrow before really determining his status, but he's definitely trending in a positive direction. So if he's not able to play opening night, it doesn't seem like he's going to be missing much time, if any at all.
Well, that's positive news for all the Mavericks fans listening right now. So, yeah, I expect a big night out of Lively. He's been awesome in the preseason. Cooper, PJ, D'Angelo might not be as nice. Maybe it is. Maybe he's flourishing, but that's just kind of my thoughts on it. For the bench pieces, I could see Ryan Nembhard with going against a young team, even though I know it's funny, Ryan Nembhard's a rookie, but he's that facilitator. He sets guys up. He exploits the defense. So, hey, if you're slacking off here, if your eyes are over here, I'm going to find that pocket. I'm going to find that no-look pass. I'm going to make you think everything's flowing right and throw it left. So I like him kind of being the quarterback of that second unit right now. And we know Brandon Williams is still kind of ramping up as well. So I could see B. Will and Nembhard's minutes kind of getting split, maybe 10, 15 minutes each. We'll have to wait and see. That's kind of where my mind is at right now. Do you think we see? Is there anybody surprising you think that'll check into the game Wednesday or play meaningful minutes? Like no one's talking maybe a Caleb Martin, a Najee Marshall playing extended minutes, Dwight. Anybody you think maybe that people aren't talking about? Like, hey, I think he might actually have somewhat of a role on Wednesday night.
I think if Daniel Gafford's unable to play, maybe you see a couple minutes for Dwight Powell, just because we saw that in preseason. And if they're trying to really stick with double bigs instead of having Anthony Davis slide over to the 5, that might be a look. I think it might be more surprising by who doesn't play, in my opinion, because if people are still working their way back, like a Brandon Williams or a Caleb Martin, those guys weren't mentioned on the injury list when Kidd was talking to reporters at Monday's practice, but they haven't really been going in full contact for, an extended period of time yet. So if they don't play, that's something regardless of that context is still a little surprising in terms of, just the way, Brandon Williams was important for this team back in March and earned a standard contract. And then Caleb Martin having, the amount of guaranteed money that he has and being traded for Quentin Grimes to not be in a rotation to start the first full season he has with the team. That would be interesting to say the least. So those are probably the main guys that I'm watching in terms of if they're going to get minutes. I think Ryan Nembhard has momentum going into the season. I'm not sure if I fully expect him to necessarily play yet. Like I know there's a lot of positivity around him, but I think it would. I think I'd probably lean more towards expecting him to play than not. But I would be more so surprised with more established guys not playing, kind of at this like early stage of the season.
Now let's get to the juicy stuff, Grant. Anthony Davis, Cooper Flag. What do we expect on Wednesday? For me, Cooper gives me a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Comfort. Like Cooper, if all this was happening and Cooper was looking super young, naive, and looks a little bit lost on the court, I would say it's a learning process. But as far as the short-term Mavericks, I'd be like, man, they got some stuff to figure out. But Cooper seems to be one of the guys that's on the right page. He kind of knows what he's doing in the right places, letting the game come to him, making the right passes, not dribbling the ball off his foot, turning it over left and right. So for me, I expect a 14-point, 7 rebound, 2 assist, 2 turnover game from Cooper Flag. Probably goes like 2 of 5 from 3, finishes at the rim. I feel like most of his points are going to be in transition, but we've also seen him score in the half court, which I think is very encouraging. The fact that they're able to give him the ball and he's able to sometimes in kind of an ISO post-up situation and get a bucket, whether it's a turnaround, whether it's a fadeaway, whether it's getting to his spot on the block. Also, we've seen him kind of do the dribble pull-up stuff. He's handled the rock decently. I'm very encouraged by Cooper Flag. I think he's going to hit the ground running, have a pretty high floor. Like I think a bad game from Cooper Flag is going to be like 9-10 points. So I'm very excited to see for him. For Anthony Davis, though, I don't know. We might see right out the gate, top 15, ramping up. I want to prove everybody wrong, and he's dropping 25, 30 a game and a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. We could see that opening night and persist, barring injury for the whole season. We also could see Anthony Davis not in flow, doesn't really know where to be. The middle's kind of clogged, running the one. We heard the report by you wanting to run that Sabonis-like offense with Jay Trino, and kind of maybe that takes some adjusting, and he's scoring anywhere in the middle teens, like 18, 19, 20, 21. And it's like, okay, cool, but it's not top 15 players. So what are you expecting from these two players in opening night and kind of at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I think at the very least, your stat line for Cooper Flag, I can see him finishing, around those lines. I think I'm really curious to see how he's going to handle attacking the paint against someone like, Victor Wembanyama's length and just
He's going to try to dunk
how,
on him.
yeah, exactly. Like how successful he is when doing so will be super interesting. How he navigates it if it's a little more difficult than he expects early on. One stat that I thought was interesting when I was just researching on the preseason, for a video that I'm going to be doing about Cooper Flag, he shot over 70% of his attempts in the half court as jump shots. So I think that's a big factor for him in any performance, as if his jump shot's going to be falling. And if he shoots 2 for 5 from 3, as you were laying out there, that puts him in a really good spot. I think the mid range has to be falling for him, just naturally because this team is still figuring out its spacing. That's something that I asked Jason Kidd about actually over the weekend at one of the practices, and he had mentioned that when Lively and Davis share the floor together, they're still working through their spacing. And I felt it was a little better in Vegas against the Lakers, where they started to put Derek Lively more on the weak side wing, and they created more empty corner actions to play out of, where, it was mostly Ryan Nembhard and Anthony Davis getting into a 2-man game. I thought that was a nice look. Just curious to see how they're going to create that spacing on opening night. But one element just of the schematics, I know, with the Spurs adding Sean Sweeney to their coaching staff, really curious to see, as the associate head coach over there, just how, as someone who worked really closely with Derek Lively, like throughout his whole career up into the season, just how he has the Spurs defense approaching, containing Derek Lively. And he's someone that knows probably better than anybody else, just how much strides he's made in his development, like his patience in the post, getting to a right hand hook, the counters he's been working on. So just curious what the scouting report from San Antonio is going to look like for Derek Lively. That's just something to think about as well. But I think regardless, Anthony Davis is definitely a talent that transcends matchup. I think he's someone, if his mid range is falling, he's probably going to be scoring in the 20s regardless, and we might get a 30 ball from him. I think if there's a game to really like, have a chip on your shoulder, opening night is always a motivating factor for every single NBA player. But having a great matchup like a Victor Wembanyama, someone who everyone views as up next, someone that is viewed as like just the automatic favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. Like I even projected Defensive Player of the Year for ballislife.com, one of the sites I write for. I picked Wembanyama, and I feel like unless he just misses too many games, it's
Yeah.
pretty much going to be his award most years than not for the rest of his career. So that's definitely a player where it's like, oh, you guys think this guy is up next? All right, I'm gonna show you I still got it, and I can get where I want to get against, this guy that I turn on, I see him on Amazon commercials, see everyone talking about him. That like that type of motivating factor where you just remind people, of that greatness throughout his career. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I know they're competitive regardless of who they're playing, no matter who it is, but that's definitely something to keep an eye on if he has a great game against someone like Victor, who's that preseason heavy favorite for Defensive Player of the Year.
As far as like the coaching staff, what are you looking for in this game? Like we saw in the preseason, them give up a bunch of threes and be negative in the 3-point attempt. They weren't attempting a lot. They were getting bombed on by threes. They're playing against these lower level teams in the preseason. They're just jacking up threes, and they were able to get up to large leads with that, whether it be the Hornets or the Lakers or whatever. Jazz, didn't really matter. Are you going to be watching that closely? What are kind of some schematic things as far as how the Mavericks play basketball, their paint touches, their 3-point attempts that Mavericks fans at home should be kind of waiting for and watching on Wednesday night to see, hey, we might have won this game, but if we don't stop this trend, it could get ugly if we're going to be a real playoff contender.
Yeah, I think it starts with just kind of the internal focuses for them. If they're a team that's going double big, as they are really embracing and taking pride in, I think against a spread team that has Victor Wembanyama at the 5 and doesn't have a true big next to him, you're going to have to dominate the boards. Like you're going to have to impose your will there, set the tone there. And I think just overall, just the core identities that they've been talking about, they want to accomplish playing fast. They want to play really fast, grab and go. Whoever gets the board, push it on the break, make the throw ahead if it's there, and just play out of that. They want to be playing that style of basketball. If they're putting a lot of possessions, trying to score within the first 6 seconds, as Jason Kidd, has reiterated as a focus for this team. How successful and efficient they are will be something to keep an eye on. Obviously, one game is just one game, but just that early season trend of that style, they want to score within the first 6 seconds. And I think defensively, there's a lot of just similarities to how they have coached this team in terms of their system during Jason Kidd's tenure. He took that core principle of switching at the veer line from Frank Vogel. I remember him talking about bringing that from LA, something he learned from him. And now Vogel is in charge of the defense. There's a lot of still core similarities in how they're approaching it. They're not a team that's wanting to really, blitz aggressively against actions. They want to stay, in position, not be in scramble mode, and trust that they have the size to be able to protect the rim. So just keeping that core identity intact and just how they're able to, execute that scheme with the veer switching, I think is another thing that I'll keep an eye on. Because with two bigs and you're facing a team that's spreading you out, there's times where they're going to want to force that mismatch, pull it back out, and then attack you. And just how we're seeing that executed where they're able to hold their own. I think those are all really important things. And 3-point volume tying into all of that, I think, is really key, because this is a team that experimented with getting a lot of threes up against Utah.
Yeah.
They shot like 53. So they're going to need to get volume up to keep pace with other teams, or else you run into, not to be a money ball, but you run into a math problem sometimes if you're getting blasted or lasered from 3 and you're not really making any. You're like 6 for 30 or 35 or something. So even if they're getting them up, they still have to knock them down. And they got a couple guys I think that we're gonna have to really keep an eye on for their consistency early on. Like a PJ Washington, I think Max Christie. Those are guys that are capable of getting them up. Also Cooper Flag as well, as he gets used to the NBA level. All those guys are capable of getting up a good volume. It's just a matter of not turning down shots and being consistent from the 3-point line. Those guys can all really influence the team's numbers in a big way, I feel like, throughout the course of a game. Also, other guys as well. D'Angelo Russell is someone that can get 5 or more up as well, depending on his minutes. And just there's a lot of guys that are capable of letting it fly. It's just a matter of as they're implementing a new scheme and system, just how reluctant are some individuals who aren't necessarily the most like efficient, sharp shooting 3-point shooters? How eager are they going to be to let it fly, or reluctant? So that will tie into the whole volume game. Just very curious to see how all that stuff carries from preseason kind of talking points into actual regular season basketball execution.
Well, it's time, Grant. It is time. The regular season is just around the corner. We heard PJ Washington say at practice that he doesn't mind. Kind of, he was asked about his bench role. He says, I'm going to be able to help wherever I can. Doesn't really mind that. Anything else you want to add to kind of the practice presser today? I know it was a bunch of just kind of coach speak, and I'm not going to let you guys know the starting lineup. I'll say for me, I think it's going to be D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, Cooper Flag, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively. That's what I think. Do I think that's the best lineup? No, I do not. Do I think that's what the lineup will be on Wednesday? That I do. Veterans deference. I think you'll see the lineup change over the coming days. Anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I think you got it. I think we're still waiting to see that starting lineup, but just based off of who they brought in this summer with D'Angelo Russell coming over on that tax MLE contract, you would think early season they would go in with him. He was spoken very highly of throughout training camp as a leader and someone that set the tone as well with his shot making and just his passing ability. So would be, I guess, in a way like. So I guess if you're starting Cooper Flag, that's just about really turning the page to maximizing his development. But again, as we've talked about, this is a team that's in win now mode. So just seeing that decision really will be interesting, whether they're trying to go full focus on development, where they think that is a winning formula still, and seeing the results from that, or if they go with someone who's more of a veteran that can take some of that ball handling pressure. I think against the San Antonio defense that we've talked about, with Victor being such a deterrent at the rim, having the most possible half court dribble penetration threats is going to be really important. So curious to see philosophically who they view that is.
It's time. We don't have to wait anymore. The next time you hear our voices, the Dallas Mavericks will have played their first game, and they'll be 1-0. I'm predicting they will beat the Spurs. It'll be I'm going to go 121 for the Mavericks. I'm going to go 116 for the Spurs. I think it's a close one. Mavs win. Your player of the game is Anthony Davis. Cooper Flag has some big rookie moments, and Klay Thompson hits some clutch threes. You?
Well, my thing is I hope for the sake of basketball that a ball boy doesn't injure Victor Wembanyama at the AAC like last year where we're expecting him to play, and we talked about this matchup.
I was right next to that. I was right next to that happening. It was crazy. I had to act like I didn't see it. I was like,
You didn't do it. That's all I needed to know.
It was Grant.
Oh, man. But yeah, all your points definitely see the game having a similar flow. I feel like the Mavericks will come out on top. Wouldn't be surprised they lose, though, not to play the hedge game, but this is a team that's still figuring out how they want to play offensively and has tried a lot of different stuff in the preseason with lineups. So they're going to have to build that chemistry. San Antonio has more continuity with the core pieces that they have. All of their starters who played in their final preseason game were players that were on the team last year and have had some quality reps together throughout Victor's time in San Antonio. So those are just some little things, coaching staff continuity over there in San Antonio as well, aside from, Sean Sweeney coming over. But yeah, I feel like the Mavericks, the veteran team, will probably come out with the win. Don't expect a blowout by any means personally, but I do think they'll come out with a slight victory, and they deserve the edge given that they're playing in their own building.
Well, it's always a blast hanging out with Grant and with you guys. Let us know in the comments what your preseason predictions or regular season game number 1 predictions are for the Dallas Mavericks. Will they come out on top? Will they lose? Who's going to be the leading scorer? All that great stuff. We'll make sure we read your guys' comments, even post on social media what y'all's predictions are as well. The next time you see us, the Mavericks will have played a regular season game. We'll upload a video on Thursday. So it'll be a post-game recap. You'll be able to go to the Mavs Pulse channel, which you're already on, and hopefully subscribe to, get a little notification in your inbox that the Mavericks won. Why do they win? How do they win? Who the stars? Who fell short? Mavs Pulse podcast has got you covered. So until Thursday, y'all be blessed, and we'll see y'all next time.